Welcome to Shalom World Podcast.
Today, we are so glad to have the singing priest, Father Mark Baumgarten.
Music makes us feel feelings, our words make us think thoughts, and songs make us feel thoughts. Their lives are getting interesting, they're not kids anymore. Selfish thoughts are giving way to hopes of something more.
Father, we are so excited to hear about your music. Thank you for being with us. Could you please tell us more about your family background? How they shaped you into who you are now in terms of your music?
Well, I grew up here in Perth, the middle of three children, and we had an organ in the house, and from an early age I think I was blessed with a good ear, and I could kind of figure out some simple songs, and so I never really had patience for lessons and learning scales and that kind of stuff, which I'll probably regret later on. As I got a bit older, and Mum eventually bought me a piano, which was, she probably couldn't afford it at the time, but I was very grateful. And so as I started to learn some other people's songs, I learned a few more things about how to play and what chords work well and that kind of thing. And so as in my mid-teens, I started experimenting with writing a few songs, and the first songs probably weren't all that good, but you keep on doing it and start to learn a few things. And but that was mainly it. It was mainly just a personal hobby until I was working as crew on these riverboats for Captain Cook cruises. And they would have piano players playing, and one of them left at short notice, and the skipper was desperately looking for someone. I said, I play a little bit of piano, so I played him a song. He said, you'll do, and ended up doing that for 3 years. So yeah, and then I was also in a couple of cover bands for a couple of years. So yeah, it's semi-professional, I suppose you could call me, but more fell into it rather than by design. You can't do everything. No, you can't do everything. Goodbye to the life that I might have led. Goodbye, I'm going with something else instead.
So yes, Father, as I said before, you are quite well known now. We've known a lot of things about you. You're called as the piano man or the singing priest. How did you end up becoming a priest? The discernment and all that.
So I was brought up Catholic, regular mass goer and all that. In my late teens, I started drifting from it a little bit. Still believed in God, I still thought Jesus was fascinating, but I guess I just had some questions I was asking about life, some searching. And so I didn't go straight to university after high school or something like that. I was kind of worked a few different jobs. I did eventually go to uni. Did some travel, had a relationship, but yeah, just wrestling with some bigger questions of life. Slowly started to make my peace with the faith a bit, slowly started to make my way back. And so by my mid-20s, I was starting to feel my age a bit, not that I was terribly old, but more in that I didn't really have a long-term life director. I decided to take a year away from friends and family and life as usual, and to let God get at me. So I kind of made a bit of a deal with God, which I wouldn't recommend others try to do, but that's all right, I'm going to give you this year. And so I went traveling, not so much to see sights, but just to have some space, as I say, from life as usual. And my hope was that by the end of that year, God would reveal to me what I was meant to do with my life long term. And so a number of significant things happened during that year. But towards the end of the year, I did a 30-day silent retreat called the Spiritual Exercises of St. Ignatius. I wasn't initially planning to do that, but something else I was going to do fell through, and it just kind of worked out. So I thought, all right, this seems like a good idea. And so I was in the midst of that retreat, and it was getting towards the end of the year, and I was starting to get a bit antsy because I still didn't really know what I was meant to do with my life, and I thought I'd made this deal with God, you see. So I had a general inclination of the sort of thing, but nothing specific. So I was in Phoenix. It was in the middle of summer, so stinking hot, and you're doing all this inner work in a retreat like that. You need some kind of physical outlet, but it was too hot to go for walks, and I was going a little stir crazy. So eventually they gave me a key to the hall next door that had a piano in it, and so they let me kind of bashing up the piano as kind of became my outlet, even though it's not really in the spirit, I suppose, of a silent retreat, but they said it was okay. So I was in there one time, and I was playing a song that I used to play on the boats that had the word goodbye in it, and I noticed these tears started welling up, and I thought, wow, it didn't seem related to anything I'd been looking at in the retreat, and I thought, well, it's clearly an indication of something. So when I finished the song, I was just kind of doodling on the piano and started writing this simple song that had the word goodbye all the way through it, and again I could feel tears under the surface. I didn't know what it was all about, so when I finished, I did a quick little recording. I thought I'd take a little break, and I had some leftovers from lunch. I went to throw in the bin outside, and as I reached into the bin, opened up the lid, looking at me was this note. It says goodbye, and a little girl's writing. It wasn't in a frame yet, I did that later, and I'm like, oh my goodness, so clearly this was God's way of whacking me on the side of the head and said, yes, the goodbye is from me. And so then I shared that whole story with my spiritual director of the retreat, and it became clear to us that I knew enough about the general direction and where I was going to know what I wasn't going to do. Like, I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player or a professional musician, despite the music I've been doing recently. I wasn't going to have my own family, and I wouldn't be shown the specifics of where I was going until I was able to let go of those things that I wasn't going to do. And I think our culture, we don't tend to do that letting go terribly well. We like to keep our options open. We like to have the choice. But if you do that indefinitely, then you don't end up doing anything properly. And it's not just for someone called to the priesthood. To marry one person is to not marry a bunch of other people, some of whom it could be quite nice to be married to, And so it's not about choosing between good and bad. Sometimes it's choosing between good things, but it's more trying to discern, well, what's God calling me to? Because that's ultimately where I'll get my deepest satisfaction. And so that note, and then the song that I'd written, became a real comfort for me as I started to go down the path I could see God was leading me. So that night, armed with the song, armed with the note, I kind of started saying goodbye to all these things and thinking of mistakes I'd made, people I'd hurt, and letting those go too, and lots of tears. And it was very exhausting, but then I woke up the next morning and I knew what I was meant to do, and that I'd be applying for the seminary when I got back to Perth. And so that song was a powerful kind of moment for me in my discerning and then my path into the seminary.
It's time to let it go. Yeah, you've got to let it go. The life that I might have led. Goodbye, I'm going with something else instead. Goodbye to the life that I might have led. Goodbye, I'm going with something else instead.
Wonderful. And going back into your music, it has played like God has used it, I think, in a big way into showing you as well of His message to you. And now you're doing it, sending message to all of us.
Sharing with others, yeah. Well, I never thought I would, because once I was in seminary, the songwriting really slowed down because I didn't have that kind of existential searching that I was doing before. Obviously, I wouldn't be writing any conventional love songs like I had done a few of those previously. Praise and worship wasn't really my thing. I didn't feel qualified to write liturgical music, so I wasn't sure what was left, what an original song might look like. There were one or two songs that came during my time in seminary, but really what got the wheels turning again was the lockdown of 2020. 20. I'd already been a priest a few years at this stage, and wasn't taking quite as much headspace to write homilies and prepare weddings and funerals and that kind of thing. So a little bit more room for some other creative outlets. And so, once we locked down, I was sending a weekly email out to my parish just to stay in touch with them. And I thought, even though I wasn't doing much on the piano at that time, I'll film myself playing one of the old songs I used to do on the boats each week, just to give them something fun to watch each week. And I think maybe that kind of got the wheels turning again. And before too long, I found myself writing a couple of new songs. And one of which we're approaching Holy Week. And I was struck by the similarities of the apostles after the crucifixion, but before Jesus had risen, how they were kind of hiding behind closed doors and afraid.
Yeah.
And here we were locked behind closed doors and a bit afraid as to, what was going to be happening in the world. And so I was struck by the parallel between that and wrote a song called Easter Sunday Morning, and subsequently recorded that. And then a couple of weeks later, wrote another song. Because I'd written a couple of songs relating to my call to the priesthood, I always thought, I should do something for married couples. That's it's a much more common calling and a beautiful vocation. And as I was starting to get to know the couples in the parish better, and some of the stories behind the surface and some of the struggles they've been going through, and again, this song just started coming to me. And so I quickly had these two new songs, and I thought, I should do something with these. I quite liked how they came together. And so I went to the studio where I'd done a bit of work previously, and just at my own expense, started producing them with the help of the friend there. And then a couple more songs started coming along, and before long, some friends said, you should put an album together. And I said, I'm not sure I've got enough songs for that. The old songs really aren't that appropriate now that I'm a priest. But eventually, we kind of got the idea of doing something more like a musical autobiography. And so this album that we've just put out, first half of the album are songs from before I entered seminary. I've kind of given it the subtitle Searching. And then the second half, which I'm called Being Found, is kind of more recent songs through seminary and into the priesthood. And by framing it this way as like a musical autobiography, it makes a bit more sense. It's a bit like with a written autobiography. You include some of the twists and turns along the way. And so some of those earlier songs, they don't entirely describe where I am now, but they do put where I've ended up in context, and so some of the path to where I am. And so putting in that sense, I ran it by a number of people. I said, it's not going to be weird, people hearing a couple of love songs from old love songs 20 years ago from a priest. I said, no, I think in the context of the way you're framing the album, that it'll work. And even the Archbishop said he thought it was fine. So anyway, that's where I've ended up.
It's Easter Sunday morning, but the sun has yet to rise. If the Lord is up to something, He's tremendously disguised. Contagion has been rampant, solitude's imposed. Fear is going viral, and the churches are all closed. On Easter Sunday morning,
I've actually listened to one of them, the one that you've dedicated to the couples in your parish. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You have had many roles before, but right now you are the parish priest at the Armadale Parish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all the roles that you've had before, could you tell us more of the relationship between those roles and your music? How do you relate?
So one of the jobs I've had previously, I was in the vocations office during the Archdiocese of Perth. So that's working with young people who are trying to discern what God is leading them to, and in a particular way, those who are considering the priesthood or religious life. And we helped put a new website together during my time there. And because I'd written a couple of songs relating to my own call to the priesthood, we actually recorded those and used them to help launch the website, and made a couple of music videos as part of that. And then I subsequently was given the role as the chaplain for Catholic Youth Ministry here in the Archdiocese. So that's supporting all the different youth groups spread in the different parishes and putting on other events as well. And Perth was fortunate to host a big Catholic youth gathering a couple of years ago, shortly before COVID hit us, the Australian Catholic Youth Festival. And so for that as well, I recorded one of my songs and made a little homemade video and used that, and that got some airplay during the festival. So there's been a couple of things that I've been able to use my songs for. But then also, as I said, I don't feel that qualified to write liturgical music, but just having a music background, it helps me, I suppose, support people who are doing music ministry either in the parish or in some of these other roles. And the fact that I've had a bit of that background, they're like, okay, I can bounce something, any questions I have of Father, and he knows a little bit about it, so it comes in handy there as well.
It's Easter Sunday morning and mystery abounds. There's rumbling neath the surface, the shackles on the ground. A glimpse is all we're promised, a sign of things unseen. There's light on the horizon, the atmosphere is clean on Easter Sunday morning.
That's right. That's wonderful, Father. And I'm pretty sure that these young people and all the rest of us actually can really be touched by your songs in one way or another, because they're real life experience, I think.
Yeah, music is a powerful way of touching us. There's this quote, I forget who it was from, that I came across recently, and they said, music makes us feel feelings, words make us think thoughts, and songs make us feel thoughts. And so that through a well-crafted song, and I'm sure we've all had songs that have been very powerful for us and have maybe facilitated a moment with the Lord, and that they can convey very powerful things, and it's not just superficial emotions. Sometimes there can be very deep concepts or ideas that are being touched upon in the songs, and so I'm not sure how well I do it, but it's something I try to do and in my free time, and God's blessed me with some skills in this area, and so now that I've got the time and the energy to do it, I suppose it's something I'm enjoying doing in my free time.
All right, Father. You have album, you have all these songs, and now you're inspiring all of us. But where do we go from here? Any future plans of doing something else?
I'm sure you've heard the saying, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans. So I try to leave enough space in my life to let the Holy Spirit kind of guide me in terms of what he wants me to do. I never would have thought, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I never would have thought I'd end up as a priest. And even a couple of years ago, I never would have thought I'd do this album. And so one advantage of the promise of obedience we make as a priest is that some of that stress is taken out of our hands, and it's up to my bishop what he wants me to do. I have, as I say, I have been writing more songs. So we've just come out with this album recently, Now and Not Yet, and I've got the website at pianopriest.com where people can access the website, and it's on all the streaming services. And I've been getting some good response from that. And so we had a concert to launch the album shortly before COVID kind of hit a bit harder here in WA. So once the current drama passes somewhat, then if there's an opportunity, I might try to do a few more concerts with the band I'd put together. There's a number of the guys who helped me with the recording in the studio, so that was good fun. So I wouldn't mind doing some more of that. And yeah, if the songs keep coming, then potentially there'll be another album in a couple of years' time. Who knows? But yeah, I'm enjoying having this outlet now, and I'm trying not to force anything too much. We'll see what God's got in store for me.
Really inspired by your story, your journey, because before we had this opportunity to talk to each other, I was actually searching you up. And I've actually gone into your Facebook page as well and listened to your songs. They're really inspirational, and I believe that it is inspired by the Holy Spirit. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing with us all this music journey and your faith.
Their lives are getting interesting. They're not kids anymore. Selfish thoughts are giving way to hopes of something more. Other folks have come and gone, but this one seems to stay. They're trying to figure out if God has set things up this way. After much discernment, they're now ready to declare, I promise to be faithful all my life. They will take each other's hand and strive to reach the promised land.
That was amazing, don't you think? Guessing who's next? Follow us on Instagram. Let us know if there's an artist you want to hear from. Drop us an email at podcast@shalomworld.org. Your donation keeps us upbeat and running so. Head over to shalomworld.org/donate and keep it coming. Learn about Shalom World podcasts on shalomworld.org. Want to know when next episode drops? Make sure you follow us at Shalom World Podcasts. Shalom World Podcasts is now available on all online platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and others.